Okay, so yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. This is my first time presenting for any of these kind of things, so I'm a little nervous, but also excited to kind of go through what we have here. So the topic, obviously, I chose was the unity of life, death, and the elements. Just to kind of, start off, the reason why I chose this was because actually one day I was just sitting here and I was thinking about the unity of the elements, kind of like the cycle of how things all join together. And I started writing it down on paper, and I thought, hey, this is kind of fun to see this kind of all like together. Maybe somebody else might be interested. And so then this opportunity arose. So here we go. Uh, Before we go into the elements or life or death, I thought we'd start with unity. And to me, there's no bigger unity symbol than I can think of than the circle, um, which is, as we see here, I have some notes noted down. So it has widespread significance, obviously, through many religious and historical sites, often representing wholeness, um, continuous, unbroken nature. A circle symbolizes completeness and unity, suggesting harmony and balance. Circles are often associated with cycles of nature, life, and the eternal. So you notice as well, I chose the temple's logo just for the background of these two slides, and the actual reason is because of the circle and the presence of the the star and such in it. Because as we know, it means a lot to the temple, but these symbols mean a lot to a lot of things. So that's why I have it there. They represent the perpetual nature of existence, emphasizing renewal and continuity. So we've got eternalness, balance, continuity. Circle means a lot of things. The lack of distinct beginning or end in a circle signifies eternity, suggesting a timeless and infinite quality. Circles can represent inclusivity and connection, as they lack corners or edges that might exclude. They symbolize a sense of community and interconnectedness. And also, my partner and I were talking about this the other day. I thought this is kind of funny now that I'm bringing this up, but in a lot of water situations, things are made circular and round because they hold pressure better. They don't tend to make things rectangular because they don't hold pressure well. So circles seem to have a lot of importance in our world for sure. The enclosed nature of a circle can symbolize protection, creating a boundary that is both secure and nurturing. So we see this in a lot of religious practices, of course. Um, in the Jedi path, the symbolism of the circle aligns with the concepts of balance, interconnectedness, and the internal nature of the Force. It reflects the oh my goodness cyclical nature of growth, learning, and the spiritual journey. So, where does this take us? Naturally, it led me to the circle of life, as we're talking about the unity of life, death, and the elements. And so here I've chosen this diagram just as a depiction I found when I was doing some research by Emmanuel Swedenborg. And his concept of the circle of life, he believed that it should include everything. Since it's a theory of everything, it should kind of have everything in it. I still think that this picture could probably have a few more things in it, but I still thought it was pretty good. So when we look at the picture, we have the tree at the top, which I think is really interesting because the tree indicates life, but it also indicates a lot of things for us in the Jedi world. We use it to connect to people, and it's seen throughout many other spiritual practices as well as something symbolic. So I love that it's here at the top. And of course, we see the natural cycle of life where we have the falling leaves and then the ants, or sorry, the animals who are eating the leaves and the insects and such. And then the animal manure that's left behind with them, and also the animal matter that's from the animals when they die and they pass on. The leaves and plant material then are eaten by the worms and bacteria, and it creates a new fertile earth essentially, which creates new germination and a new generation of trees. So we have the new tree there. And also, I chose the little circle of life Yoda there. I don't know if anyone noticed that in the middle. I thought it was cute when I saw it. So now I guess we leave the circle of life. and we leave the topic of circles, and we kind of move on to elements. Now, elements, of course, we can look at elements a lot of ways. We can look at it as a periodic table of elements. We can look at it as states of matter, right? Elements. We can look at it as the five elements, the five Chinese elements. We can look at it as the four main elements: earth, earth, fire, water, and air. Right now, we're going to focus on the three states of matter, just before we get into that, so we can define what those mean to us. So we're going to keep this really open, this topic, because this is meant to be broad. So we're not going to get really scientific about things, but we are going to talk a little bit about elements. So we'll try to keep it light. So we have the solid, the liquid, and the gas states of matter, as we know, right? So we have earth, if you would, water, and air. And those come in many forms of gas, liquids, and solids. But as we see here, what about the fourth main element that we all think about, fire, right? Where's that one? Well, science tells us that flames consist primarily of carbon dioxide, water vapor, oxygen, and nitrogen. And if hot enough, the gases may become ionized and produce plasma. Depending on the substance, any impurities outside, the color of the flame may change, as we know. And fire is plasma. And so science says that plasma is not necessarily a gas or a solid. It's kind of a transient state in between. But to me, when I hear that, where it's neither or, well, then it must be identified as something. So why couldn't we just call it its own element, which is, I think, why a lot of people do that, why they look at fire as such. But I do like that it's an in-between state. It shows us that elements are transferred, that things can change states. And so here we have the depiction of that, the showing of what happens, the sublimation and deposition, evaporation, condensation, and freezing and melting process of liquid, solid, and gas. So what this kind of shows us is, and it's kind of funny that we're seeing this now, right? Because we were talking about the circle, and now we see a cycle. We see, it's a triangle, but it still has a round, cycle that it can go between states. So elements seem to have rely on the cycle or the circle as well. So a simple definition of what is an element to us, we could say that air represents the gaseous and tangible substance that makes up the atmosphere, influencing weather patterns and providing the breath of life. Water signifies the liquid form that covers a significant portion of the Earth's surface, including oceans, rivers, and lakes. Fire represents the energy released during combustion, typically manifesting as heat and light. It's associated with transformation and the intense dynamic aspects of nature. And earth, of course, refers to the solid, stable, and tangible aspects of the physical world, such as rocks, soil, and land. And in my opinion, we could include life there as well, plant life and animal life. Is this making sense, I think? Everyone following along?
Yep,
Good.
making sense so far.
I was going to say, if I don't hear any noise, then I'll take that as a yes, but perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we've kind of defined what elements kind of mean to us, as best as possible, and as simple as possible. Oh, I'm just going to take this back there. So we have this picture, and it's a picture of a tree, which once again, I love the trees here at the top. And we have, the world, or in my opinion, the elements. I didn't make this image. I kind of stole this, but I really liked it because it kind of depicted where I wanted to take this presentation. So when we see this, what do we think of, when we see this picture, other than elements? To me, I think of life and death, right? Because we see the dirt that's kind of infertile now. It's cracked, it's dry. The clouds are clouded over, so the sun can't get through to create life for the plants, and so on and so forth. And on the other side, obviously the opposite, right? You have the sun shining down and the trees. But what's interesting about this picture is that things are still there. So whether or not life is there or death is there, little bits of both are still in between. So how did this happen though, right? What causes death? And how do the elements come into play with this? So I kind of did some thinking about this image of what I thought could cause this kind of, destruction. And each element had, had an option, had a way of doing that. So with fire, we had, of course, the land could have been scorched. Uh, with water, it could have been flooded and everything completely died. Eventually, maybe it's starting to grow back. That's why you see some leaves on the tree on the other side. With the earth, maybe there's an earthquake or things just became barren and the land was no longer fertile just after dry times. Um, or of course, air. You have tornadoes and hurricanes and all sorts of strong winds that can cause these kind of crazy destruction as well. And I've got some images there showing how you can very well do that. Um, so when we kind of look at that now, we have, once again, back to the circle, we have the four elements. So all four elements have the ability to create death. They have the ability to cause destruction in their own ways, water through drowning and flooding, waterborne diseases, right? Um, those can be pretty catastrophic as well. Natural disasters like tsunamis and storm surges. Air, of course, like we said, storms and hurricanes, tornadoes, air pollution, and airborne illnesses. So air has the ability to carry death to us in those ways. Earth, earthquakes, as we've seen in Japan, not landslides. We've seen earlier this year, soil erosion, fire, of course, uncontrolled wildfires. We see these recently as well, volcanoes, all these things, explosion. These all have the elements have the ability to essentially cause death and destruction in industrial accidents. Is the other one that can come from fire, of course. But what about life? How do the elements help us with life? So I found a few images here that I thought would reflect that portion of thing, of that thing, or what I thought would represent this image well, of what I could see happening. And one thing that's really beautiful about, fires, for example, is you have a new growth that comes from them. So a lot of time when fires happen, there can be actually positive outcomes where the new growth underneath can now grow and get more sunlight and become new, stronger growth than what was there before, because maybe the growth before was old. So there can be benefits to fire, and how it plays that impact of creating life. Water, of course, we know rain. It gives rain to the plants. Very simple. We could choose that option. Earth, as we know, there's plenty of life with the earth, so it gives us many ways of life, and we're going to cover that in just shortly here. Air, of course, air is, as we know, crucial. If we did not have it, none of us would be breathing, and we would all be dead. So that would be no good. So once again, back to the circle. So the elements seem to create life as well, and they all have this ability. Water is essential for life on Earth because it functions as a better than most other liquids. I have a typo there, that's fine. Ability to absorb other substances, creates key chemical reactions in animal and plant microbial cells. It's ideal to heat conduction, surface tension, boiling, and melting point. So water is just, it's really a fascinating substance that allows life to grow. And also it's permeable to light as well, allows light through. Earth provides a stable foundation for ecosystems. It supports plant growth, sustains habitats, facilitates nutrient cycling. Elements like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus are processed through Earth. Decomposition releases nutrients for plant life. So Earth is essential as well, the element. Air, organisms, including humans, as we know, breathe oxygen. Oxygen supports combustion. So it also gives life to fire. Plants can convert carbon dioxide from the air via photosynthesis, producing oxygen, forming the basis of the food chain. Air movement contribute to the weather patterns, creating a variety of climates and supporting a diverse ecosystem. And of course, fire. This one I actually struggled with, believe it or not, when I was trying to research and think in my own brain, how does fire create life? We talked about the forest part, that one was clear to me. But believe it or not, there are other ways that it does. And the one at the very end here, I'll skip to that. The sun was the most obvious. Without the sun, which is essentially a combustion, a nuclear fusion continuously going on, is continuously giving us heat and providing life to the earth. Fire has been integral to human evolution as well for tool making, warmth, and protection. And it's also been crucial for cooking and making food more digestible and unlocking nutrients. So all the elements here are playing key roles in creating life as well as creating death. So if everything's related to a circle, then can we go back around? Can life create the elements? Well, it turns out they can. Um, Water is essential for life on Earth because it functions as a better substance than most other liquids. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right slide here. Yeah, yes. Just reading through here. Just give me one moment. I think this one here, the first top one, might be wrong, but that's okay. Oops. Sorry, guys. So life creates the elements. I think I missed my points here for water. I was supposed to switch that one. So that one's wrong, but the rest are right. That's what confused me. So we'll just skip that for one quick second. We'll come back to water. Life creates air. Plants and certain microorganisms release oxygen through photosynthesis, and animals, including humans, create carbon dioxide via respiration. So at that point, we see that plants are actually creating the air. So they're adding to that cycle, right? Life creates fire. Oxygen produced by life is vital for the sustenance of fire. Certain birds, like some species of raptors, are known to carry burning sticks and unintentionally cause spreading fires, which I thought was really interesting when I found that out. Beyond intention arson, so beyond life essentially directly doing that, um, domesticated animals can also lead to accidental fires in humans, as we know. Certain insects also as well can indirectly contribute to forest fires, like beetles by destroying trees. Plants play a crucial role in shaping the earth by stabilizing soil through their roots and preventing erosion. So, earth there is as well is super important for creating the elements, right? Because if 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 life wasn't there to help with the process of the earth, it would just become infertile and then just be nothing. So it's like I said, it's a process giving back and forth. Plants, fruits and leaves, and animals and biowaste create compost and contribute to nutrient-rich soil. Some animals, like burrowing animals, contribute to soil aeration and nutrient distribution. Um, so as we know, uh, life. So with water, if we can jump up to this one, since I don't have any points for it, uh, if we were to think about how does life create water, well, water is actually originally created by. This is why I skipped it. I forgot to put my points in here. I remember now. Uh, water is created. It's kind of it's a hot topic in science. After researching it, there are some theories that it was created through a process originally with gases in the universe which kind of came together, or perhaps it was something that smacked the earth, something like a big combustion caused uh, water. So one way or the other, at the very beginning of water, it would have to have some sort of motion, and you could define motion by life. So I guess you could say that life did create water at the very beginning. That's how I looked at it anyway. Um, when you look at the process of water, of course, we know that uh, there's many ways that water is filtered through the earth, right? It goes through rivers and lakes, and through underwater systems in the earth, which essentially filters the salt water back to fresh water. So there is an awful lot of processing that happens throughout the elements, of course. And that leads us to the last part of the circle. Well, can death create the elements as well? And it turns out it can. As we mentioned with water, hydrogen and oxygen equals an explosion. So that would create water. That's how you create water in the science lab, essentially. And that's why they do believe that that's how water was created, by joining the two atoms together, essentially. Um, Death creates air. Decaying matter creates gases like methane and ammonia. And death creates earth. Decaying and burnt matter creates fertile earth. And fire, of course, decaying matter gives fuel to fire. So as we can see, death also can create the elements. So it seems to be a giant circle. Everything is connected. Even the elements have cycles. So I grabbed this one. I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with this cycle or this element depiction. This is the Sheng cycle, or the Chinese element cycle, and they have a generating cycle and a deconstructive cycle. So that's kind of like what we were talking about just a moment ago, which I thought was really interesting. And in their cycle, they show that wood generates fire. So you could call that earth, generates fire, but back to earth again. So now we're here again. And it's needed to grow food in earth, right? So it's already joining a circle there. You could even join those together. Earth provides soil and high minerals to metal, and then metal enriches water, and then water creates wood. It gives growth to wood. And then, of course, the cycle goes on. So that's the generating cycle. And the deconstruction cycle. We have fire melts metal, metal chops wood, wood destroys earth, earth absorbs water, water puts out fire, and so on and so forth. And this is also depicted in Chinese medicine. So this is the same idea, and this is how they kind of connect our organs to the elements. So they believe that inside of us, even our organs are essentially representations of the elements, and they work together in tandem with the same kind of idea, nourishing and restraining. So constructing and deconstructing. So these are we talked about all the elements that we know of, the ones we can see, but what about the ones we can't see? And the ones that we're probably the most interested in as Jedi, I suppose. What about spirit or the force, right? What about the invisible element? Has anyone ever seen this before? I found this and I thought it was really fun.
Dude, oh my goodness, I love this. Where'd you find this?
This is awesome.
Right? I put the Star Wars things on there because I was like, they just need to be there. But
I was saying, hey,
I stuck those on there, because we're talking about spirit, and I felt like they went well. But yeah,
sorry.
But I thought this was really, really cool because we're talking about elements, about spirit, and it's invisible elements, right? And I thought, well, this is kind of cool because these are the invisible elements of spirit, really, if you want to put it that way, the ones that we talk about, or at least that we can identify. So divinity, humanity, Trinity, all these things. So yeah, I thought, although it was kind of funny when I found this, it had some seriousness to it to me as well, to the element of what we're talking about. I think all of these are super important, and we talk about them as Jedi, you know. So I guess these could be the elements of spirit, perhaps. But what if we're saying that everything's connected and everything's, you know, a cycle or a circle, then can't we connect the physical elements to spirit? Well, apparently we can. I know at least and well, there you see this in a lot of spiritual talk, but for in tarot, for an example, you see, you know, the four card sets. So the coins, the cups, the swords, and the wands all represent an element, right? So in tarot, like I said, all of those suits represent an element: earth, air, fire, and water. And these ideas of the elements here, as we see on the screen, are what the tarot actually represent. That's what they believe. So the air cards represent intellect, communication, and realm of thought. Now these definitions aren't taken from tarot definitions. These are taken from general spiritual definitions. But I think it's because it's across the board. It's identified that air represents intellect, communication, and the realm of thought. So when we look at that in ourselves, we could say, well, what the spiritual aspect of thought, you know? So when we think and we're thinking and communicating, that is a part of spirit, because it's how we're processing that, I suppose. Oops, I pushed the button. Water signifying emotions, intuition, and the fluid aspects of life. So those can be represented as the elements in our inside of ourselves and inside of our lives as well. Fire representing action, energy, transformation, and the driving force of change. And of course, earth representing stability, grounding, and the physical realm, and all things material, right? So all things we can touch and feel. So cycles are everywhere, but what about the cosmic force? So we talk about the cosmic force a little bit as Jedi. There's no real, from what I understand, sound belief of what, you know, we believe, because no one really knows what the answers are or what those cycles look like. But we have some ideas. You look at this one. Christianity has offered us, you know, some ideas of what happens with spirit or the afterlife. You know, some tales there. Heaven, right, and hell. Perhaps you have two options. Or maybe from a Buddhist perspective, you know, once again, what do we see? A circle, the wheel. And I think it's so interesting that, you know, it's in a circle, because my whole topic is about cycles. And from the Buddhist perspective, you have, as we can see, this kind of journey that you go through, you know, the healing, the between lives, the pre-birth, the rebirth, life journey, the death, the light, the life review, and then back to healing and all over again. It just continues. And this is not necessarily even just found in Buddhism. Reincarnation beliefs are found not only in India, but in most small scale tribal societies throughout the world, including many native societies in North America. So I wonder if it's just because, you know, our ancestors saw what we're seeing today, that everything's connected and the elements all play a part. We are all connected, the spirit in our physical manifestation and our soul. I saw that quote and I was like, yeah, that one goes really well. I'm gonna throw that in there. Gave me a minute to take a sip again. So here we are back to the elements, and here we see some science stuff going on. We've got the human body, and we've got some elements there from the periodic table. You know, oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, potassium. Well, that's you. That's what you're looking at. That's you. You're made up of all these little things. And it's totally 100% true that nearly all the elements in the human body were made in a star, and many have come through several supernovas. So what does that tell us? That essentially we're just all little elements. We're all just little pieces of atoms at the core. Quantum physics states that mass and energy are interchangeable, and that consequently that mass is merely a manifestation of energy. This means that everything, including humans, is simply energy stored in mass particle form. According to the theories associated with the universal energy field, all matter and psychological processes, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and attitudes are composed of energy. Thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and attitudes. Sounds like spirit. Isn't that what we were just talking about? The elements again? When applied to the human body, every atom, molecule, cell, tissue, and body system is composed of energy that, when superimposed on each other, create what is known as the human energy field. So this is an excerpt I took from a physical therapist I found online, and I really liked kind of what he wrote here, because it kind of summed up what I wanted to talk about. And it's that we're all essentially just energy, and those atoms, like we talked about in the last slide. So how does this bring us back to, to who we are? Well, I looked through our doctrine, and I was able to find some points on cycles as well. And I really wanted to just point these out because I thought it was great. Jedi maintain a clarity of awareness that all events are interconnected. The balance of the Force is a flowing continuum. It flows around us and through us, allowing us to adapt and change, arising in its eternal cycles of creation and renewal. Sounds like my whole presentation. Jedi practice non-attachment, maintaining an awareness that the cycles of creativity and renewal in the Force give rise to phenomena as others pass away. The Jedi practice humility. Jedi know that we are processes in the Force and exist within its cycles of creativity and renewal. The more we practice humility, the more we become to insights of wisdom which come to us through our feeling of the Force. The Jedi realize that all phenomena, including that life itself, arise from and dissolve back into the cycles of creation and renewal of the Force. So our doctrine is stating everything that we've kind of went over. It's just laying it out for us. We are aware that the interconnectedness of the continuum of the phenomena, that unconditional love and compassion are central to us, and that pain is real. When we must bear witness to the disillusion of those we care for in our limited incarnated organic capacity, we must extend our compassion, our faith, and our comprehension to rebalance that which we otherwise would feel as loss. The Force only creates and renews; it does not deprive. I love this because what this tells me is that we are, like I said, we are all atoms, we're all elements, and even our emotions, even though they are invisible, are real. They are identified. And I love that our doctrine covers that because it's something that I truly do believe. So that's my slides, I guess, what I have. Kind of wraps up my presentation anyway. So that, yeah, that's it.
Fantastic.
I'm open to questions now and yeah, conversation for sure.
Well done.
Thank you.
I love it.
I definitely did a screen grab of that spiritual periodic of table.
Oh yeah, you can have the whole presentation for sure. I'll make it available to everybody. I'll probably fix that one slide too.
If we could get a piece of that as well. So yeah, if you could send that around, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll make it shareable for sure.
I discovered that there's like a whole book built around that image.
Yeah, there is a whole book for sure. It's honestly, I could have put so much more in my presentation. There's so much out there, but I try to find some stuff I liked. So yeah.
So
did anyone have? Go ahead. Sorry.
The interesting thing is that the picture that you showed in the beginning, and you're like, what do you see when you see this? Incidentally, I see the climate change.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
for
exactly
sure.
what I think of.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's something to think about as well. You know, when you look at the dinosaurs when they were here, you know, we only have a really, you know, we're getting a better idea, but we only have a minute understanding of what it really looked like. And what we know is everything was huge, you know, and the climate was different. So whether or not we are impacting the climate or not, it's definitely changing. And um, for sure, climate change can have drastic effects, like as the dinosaurs are no longer here, right? So um, whether or not we know that that is caused by climate change or not, it's certainly, we do know that it's possible of causing some catastrophic deaths for sure. Anyone else have any thoughts or questions you're thinking about?
Or it's kind of interesting to talk about the cycles of life and death and everything. I actually deal with that somewhat intimately, simply because, sorry, I'm doing some maintenance here, but we hatch and raise quail, and it's just a natural thing that when you do this, you see the full life cycle, the birth, the death, everything.
Yes.
And it is a real thing that to make room for the coming generations, somebody has to leave. But it is not a sadness, it's a celebration of the life they had.
For
And
sure.
so
I love that I love that you brought that up, honestly. I really do. Yeah. I think it's just I also raise birds, so I can really I
you
can really
can relate then.
relate to you. Yeah. I have ducks, chickens, geese. I got the whole shebang out there. But
Well, we can't have the rest, but we do quail. And compared to chickens and whatnot, they have a very short lifespan. They live
yes.
fast
Yeah.
and they
And they're
burn
really
out
easy to
fast.
process. That's my I have a few friends who have them, and I would like to get them when I have some more space, because yeah, they're quick and easy. I know that sounds horrible, but you know, they really are. And life is, you know, when you get your food from the grocery store, it changes the way you think about food. That much I can say, because I was raised that way. Um, and when you're doing your own food like that, you know, you see, like you said, you see the cycles. You do start to have a completely different appreciation for things, and you do um, look at things differently. You know, so
Yeah.
uh,
And it's also very different because you're under no illusions of where your food comes from, and you know that your food had the best life possible. But yeah, quail are very short-lived, and I am the one who ushers them in, and I am the one who ushers them out. So, you know, it's just natural. It's life cycle.
yeah,
It is you know, it is so intertwined, life and death. And
there's I really believe in, well, I do, yes, definitely intertwined. Sorry, you don't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I'm just washing my hands. I just finished
Oh,
taking care of the babies.
I was going to say,
So
yes, it is intertwined for sure. You know, and it's um, the emotions, like we talked about, are part of things as well. And as you are processing life, and as life is going on around us, you know, we're processing our intellectual thoughts and our emotions and all those internal elements, as we discussed as well. And they're kind of happening at the same time. So they go hand in hand. So, you know, as you experience death, for an example, let's say you lose a loved one or a pet or whatever it may be, a plant that you loved, or maybe it's an item you had. You know, loss can come in many forms. When you experience loss, though, it creates emotions, and what happens there is you now have to process that, so the cycle begins inside you. And that's like all a part of healing, and kind of like we talked, like we showed in the Buddhism wheel of rebirth, you know, and how they believe in karmic lessons and such. So, you know, for me, I'll say that I had a I don't want to say a fear, because I wouldn't say it's a fear, but I never really accepted death as a young person. I definitely no one ever thinks they're going to die. And when they're younger, especially, you feel like you're going to live forever. But as you get older, you start to see things happen. And for me, you mentioned the quail thing, and I really like that because uh, having a farm now and seeing, my partner said this the other day. He's like, "Oh, there's so much life and death here, Devin." You know, my name is Devin, by the way, and it's true. But that's the natural cycle of life. It's like when something happens, you can't get too upset about it anymore. It's not you become numb. You just learn to process it better and differently. You realize that, okay, well, that's a natural part of life, and what do we do next? You don't get stuck on certain parts of that cycle if you get better at processing it anyway. That's the only way to look at it. I used to think maybe you would have to become numb, to accept death or something, but no, I think for me, actually, I look at death as a beautiful thing now. And believe it or not, I'm with you, and I definitely think that there is no death. I think that it's energy is only transferred. That's a scientific fact. So if we're all just those carbon in atoms, if we are to die, then what's to happen? Well, we must just be regenerated. So maybe I'll be reborn as a plant, maybe I'll be reborn as a hamster, I don't know, but maybe I'll be reborn as dirt. But I know that the cycle continues.
That is it. It's transformative and it's respectful. And the way you process, whether it's, in the case of a farm where you are the bringer of it, or whether it's something where a threat or that came to you, or whether it's someone you cared about who passed. It's a transformation, and it's about the celebration of where we came from and where we're going. And we may not know where that is, but it's certainly somewhere, and it's a becoming. So I will say that getting into quail, I've only been in them now for 2-3 years. It was actually very therapeutic because I was actually dealing with a situation where I had a home invasion here, and I was faced with my own death. And that led to a lot of things to think about. And ironically enough, having the quail and doing the full life cycle with them was, in a very strange way, therapeutic in being able to face and process my own life,
Yes,
which
for
was
sure.
really good.
I do recommend to any Jedi who is looking to understand death more that they do spend time on a farm and do that, because it opened doors and to me that I never thought I needed to open in ways that I never thought could be opened. For sure, I agree. Yes. We all process it differently. I can't tell you what to expect, but all I can tell you is the outcome will be good. You know, for sure. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. My mom, we talk about that often. She's like, "Oh, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it," but I think she could, and I do think that, in the end, it would probably after you. I don't want to say that you think it's not that bad, but I think you realize how fragile life is and how lucky we are to have that life, for sure.
If anything, it helps you respect and further fall in harmony with all the cycles and truly honor
Yeah,
the to even as you're processing it. Our
definitely.
family actually has a cattle ranch, so we actually um, do the branding. We take care of the cows. They're all grass fed because they're grazers, and
Beautiful.
it's fun because I always like honoring the life that they give while I get to also enjoy meat every year too. It's a great sustainable option too. Plus then also like breeding and things like, AI, artificial insemination to continue life and yet to also cull the herd. It's fascinating and balance and stuff. It's awesome.
Yes, for sure. Farming is an important piece to our existence, and it definitely talks to a lot about the elements and the cycles of the elements, and it relies so much on our understanding of that and our respect for it, for sure. Yeah, that's really probably why I'm doing this presentation, because I've become such a homesteader. I do all my own stuff, and now that I have a garden where the literally I can see that cycle of life outside. I see the animals, like you said. I raise them from eggs. I hatch them. They poop in the garden. The poop creates a fertile earth. Believe it or not, the huge gardens just by letting them poop in the dirt. You don't have to put Miracle Grow down. You don't put any sort of fertilizers down. You don't buy fertilizer. You hear that? You don't buy fertilizer. You just
Yeah.
let them poop, and you just
Free
turn it in,
fertilizer.
turn it into the dirt. You put your plants in, you water it every day, and that is it, guys. That's it. I couldn't believe it. I was blown away by doing this because lived in an apartment in the city, and I used Miracle Grow, like liquid fertilizer, and well, that's all I had though. I didn't have chickens. I couldn't fit them
Yeah,
in my
yeah.
in my apartment, right? But to see
Right.
the difference of the size of the vegetables, the ease of the growth, and yeah, it really is amazing for sure. So I know not everyone can have that luxury, but even if you can get out there and find a friend or even go just experience it, it's totally worth it. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to start a retreat for people who want to actually come and do that. So it's my whole.
I bet you get along really well with Pastor Carlos, don't you?
We do get along very well, yes. For sure.
Composting is also awesome too, and things like eggshells or even cardboard can be broken down naturally and become
Yes.
organic matter.
Well, yeah, like a guy who comes and buys duck eggs and hatching duck eggs for me in the spring, he said, "Oh, he's like, oh, what are you doing with your compost over there?" He's like, just put some worms in there, He's like, just feed them the egg cartons. He's like, they just eat egg cartons. And I was like, what?
Yep.
But but it's true though, and I have a small little worm compost actually going over there in my kitchen. It's in a little ice cream container thing, but it's to feed my salamanders, and that's just it. I just put some paper in there or whatever, straw, from my chickens or whatever. That's all it is. I don't pay for if I don't have to pay for something, I usually don't. I try to do it myself.
Your birds will keep down pests around your plants as well.
Oh, they
help.
kill all the slugs.
Yep.
Yeah, but no slugs in the grass because the ducks
Yeah.
love the slugs. Yeah, for sure. It's
That
been
helps
wonderful.
the crops as well. So
Yeah, you can grow cabbage, like you can grow cauliflower, right? With having the ducks. That's the other. I told my mom that I was
Yep.
like, but you wouldn't believe it. Like you don't have to have any pesticides. You just have the birds. Right? I basically the way I have it is I have my pen in my garden, and then they let them out. Like I lock that off in the summer so they don't go into the garden. And yeah, like they go out around it basically, so they can only go around the garden. So they're eating all the bugs that are like outside of it, so nothing can get in. Basically, very rare that you get a bug in there. Might be a spider, but or
So
mosquitoes, of course.
an automatic, fully sustainable ecosystem in its own.
Yeah, it's a miniature one we've got going. It's just a small green. Well, it's large enough, but it's just a small property we have right now that we're renting. We own 10 acres, kind of up the other way in the island, but when we moved here, it was during COVID, so you couldn't come here without like a lease or something. So we had to get a lease because we only had the 10 acres of forest and a cabin, which wasn't insured. So blah blah blah. The government's like, it's not insured, so you can't go there. Whatever. So anyway, so then we had to come here, rented this, and now we kind of set up here, and we've been building up there and deciding what we want to do in the future. So that's kind of the idea. So eventually we'll have like 6 greenhouses or a much larger silo greenhouse for sure. And then all the birds will just stay in there in the winter. So yeah, that's anyway, that's a great conversation. I'm so happy that everyone enjoyed it, that you guys that you made it out for this, because I think it's a great topic. There's a lot more that we definitely could go through. I think especially when we talk about the force and energy and how that's transferred. But I guess we can leave that for another discussion. If anyone else has anything else. For Highland, you're here.